Good afternoon. I'm sitting in my backyard shooting a little video. I'm going to tell you the story about my journey with ALS. My name is Jaeckel. A little over 5 years ago, in July of 2010, I got some news from the doctor that wasn't so great. He looked me in the eye and said, I'm afraid to tell you that you have ALS and there's no cure and there's no treatment, and you should probably go home and get your things in order. It was a sobering and kind of life-altering diagnosis for me. I fell kind of into a depression for the first few months, and then later got over it. Those first few months were pretty dark. A lot of people were, including my family and friends, were very confused. I'd always been really active and an athlete and able to do most anything that I wanted to do. My body was always a source of strength for me. I could lift heavy things and play sports and run marathons, and now I had a disease that unfortunately was going to erode my body. They told me that my life expectancy was going to be between 2 and 5 years, and so I'm very blessed to be here today. I'm at 5 years plus a couple of months from my diagnosis. I'll tell you a little bit about how I came to get the diagnosis. Maybe that would be interesting. In the ski season, the cross-country ski season of 2009, I was training for the Birkebeiner here in Hayward, and I noticed that I was skiing pretty well, but on longer training days and on longer skis, I would have some weird cramping, and I thought it was unique. Later that year, during the Birkebeiner race, I was really doing well in my race and looking forward to maybe setting a personal record on my 17th Birkebeiner. But during the second half of the race, I had to kind of back down my intensity because I was getting weird cramping. Later that year, in the summer of 2009, I was on a trip to the Boundary Waters and noticed that I was struggling to get a canoe over my head to portage it by myself. And this was something I'd never struggled with before. I'd always been, pretty good at doing that. And I thought, well, I'd never been 52 before either, so maybe being 50 years old and older, maybe this was what 50 was about. Later that fall, on the sideline of a football game as a football coach, I had a subarachnoid hemorrhage and got life-flighted to a hospital in the Twin Cities from Hayward here. Spent some time there. Basically was told that the type of brain bleed I had was not going to be a problem for me and that it was a one-time thing. So I was pretty excited and realized how blessed I was to kind of dodge that bullet. It was during the recovery from my brain bleed in the spring and summer of 2010 that I noticed my right shoulder was getting smaller. My right shoulder had always been kind of a weak spot for me after suffering several injuries there. But during that doctoring, looking at why that shoulder was getting smaller, I ended up with the diagnosis of ALS. Like I said earlier, the first couple months of being diagnosed with ALS were pretty bleak. I did have a ray of light kind of shone into my journey with ALS, and it truly is a journey, because I will tell you that ALS is an awful diagnosis, but not everything about my diagnosis of ALS has been a negative in my life. In September of 2010, I was introduced to a very amazing lady. Her name is Karen Hurd. She's affectionately known as the Bean Queen. She's a nutritionist out of Fall Creek, Wisconsin, and she designed for me a diet that I'm certain has helped slow my progression of ALS and has certainly made me healthier beyond my simple controlling my symptoms of ALS. I want to touch a little bit about how blessed I feel for being able to live as long as I have. Early on when I got diagnosed, I didn't think that enjoying my life, not being able to ski and bike and run and do all those things that had occupied my life, going fishing and hunting and paddling canoes and kayaks and going sailing, all those things that I had enjoyed for most of my active life, that my life could be as enjoyable as it has. But it actually has become even enriched through my experience and my journey with ALS. I've had a chance now, I taught for 4 years and continued coaching, but in the last year and a half since I've retired from teaching and coaching, I've had a chance to work with our local hospice organization, and it's been a very enriching and actually rewarding volunteer situation for me. ALS has not been all bad. I can't say that I can yet say that I'm thankful for ALS, but certain things about my diagnosis have certainly enriched my life beyond what I thought was possible 5 years ago. I've been fortunate enough to be a recovering alcoholic and drug addict for almost 30 years now. And the interesting thing that I've noticed in my journey here with ALS is that the skills that I learned way back in rehab at Hazelden have been very, very valuable for me to address having a terminal illness. It's interesting. There's a thought shift for me, and I think for a lot of people who get a terminal diagnosis, is the thought shift is what I like to cook it down to the difference between if and when. Up until my ALS diagnosis, I knew that I wasn't going to live forever, but I didn't know that if I actually believed that. So my death was always in that if column. Since my diagnosis, I've had to address death as a when, and it's a when for all of us, but until I got that diagnosis, it didn't make that subtle shift in language or in content for me. So knowing that you have a terminal illness is in some ways kind of freeing. It allows you to focus on things that are important and realizing that you need to just continue loving the people that you love and letting them know about it. Another thing that's been interesting in my journey with ALS is that early on, I reached out to some agencies and they were very helpful. The ALS Association of Wisconsin, the local chapter out of Chippewa Falls, were very helpful in my early journey. Later on in that journey, I was again blessed by the ALS Association of Wisconsin to attend the ALS Advocacy Days in Washington, D.C., where we were lobbying representatives of Wisconsin and all 50 states to continue funding for ALS causes and ALS research. After that trip to Washington, I realized how important advocacy for ALS is, and part of the reason I'm shooting this video is that hopefully this video will reach out and help people understand the impact that ALS has on people's lives. Again, I've been very gifted, very blessed to have a very slow progression. But a lot of my brothers and sisters who have the same shared diagnosis as I do, their progression is much more rapid. They wouldn't be able to sit here and speak these words to you. Sometimes their voice is the first thing that's robbed. Many of them don't live the first year after diagnosis, and 90% are in fact dead after 5 years from their diagnosis. So given that I feel blessed to have this extra time, I feel the need to increase my activities with advocacy. I've been working with the ALS Association of Wisconsin to do more things and attend more events and try and bring ALS to the forefront. The Ice Bucket Challenge last summer was an awesome thing. It was the first thing on a national level that I really felt had brought ALS to the forefront. And Pete Frates and his friends who thought of it are geniuses. And they, my thoughts and prayers are with them in their journey with ALS also. So given that I've been given this extra time, I want to do whatever I can to bring the cause of ALS and the people suffering with ALS to the forefront of everyone's thoughts and minds.